I'm down.
So, what I was telling you about this guy that on YouTube that talks metal mixing. Um, Glenn was showing me one of his videos last night. Really great tips, not just for mixing metal, but just mixing in general. And
Okay.
we're gonna check this out because there's some fantastic information in there on how to mix your sound, especially for metal. This is
Okay.
one that you and Jason are both going to appreciate.
Okay. Hell
And
yeah.
this guy is the pro when it comes to metal mixing. You probably will recognize him when you see him. Oh, let me stop sharing here, and that way, if Glenn, if you want to get that fired up.
Yep.
It's not Rick Beato, is it?
Not this one, no.
Nope.
No, but I love Beato too. Veronica
Yeah,
turned me
he's
on to
got.
him, and I've been watching his videos ever since.
Oh yeah,
He
he's
has
good.
he has great song analysis. With Beato, you get great song analysis. He really goes through at least those
Yep.
videos where he analyzes like why is this song great. He really goes through the parts, and that's something that
Are
I
you
think everybody
struggling with
should
your
do
mixes?
to
Does the
appreciate a
mix
song.
process seem to be endless? Are you getting absolutely nowhere? Don't be alarmed. It's perfectly normal, and we all go through it. It's not that you're bad at what you do, you just lack experience. Fortunately, I've made a lot of these same mistakes over the years, and I'm more than happy to share what I've picked up to help you become much more efficient at mixing metal. Oh man, the struggle for a better mix. I can't think of a more meticulous, nitpicking situation than trying to get that perfect mix. Here's an interesting thing about that. Perfect mixes suck! They're bland, stale, and predictable. In rock and metal, a little chaos goes a long way. So I put together a list of things to do and to not do to help you speed up your process and achieve your goals faster. Number 1, turn off your phone! This still happens to me all the time. Working away and the phone is just like buzz, buzz, buzz. And it's like, why don't you fucking realize I'm trying to work? Leave me the fuck alone! It doesn't matter if you're mixing audio, you're editing video, or doing another task that requires some serious concentration. Seriously, please, turn off your phone. It's a gigantic distraction. Riddle me this. How many times have you said, oh, I'll just look up this one thing real quick, and next thing you know, you're 10 messages deep on social media, and a half hour's gone by? Yeah, it hasn't happened to me at all. Here's the thing. All those cute icons and friendly interfaces are designed to suck you in and keep you on the platform. That's why YouTube started pushing longer videos, and that's why I started making longer YouTube videos. Believe me, I really miss the days of being able to do 5-minute tutorials, but hey, it's their platform and here we are. It's hard to get anything done when you've basically got the Encyclopedia Galactica meets a populist meth lab constantly prodding you for your attention. Just turn the fucking thing off. That is, after you've watched this video, you'll be amazed at how much more quickly things will get done. Number 2, templates. Find what works.
Can you pause for a second, Glenn?
We've all got
before we go to number 2.
Sure.
And that is a good general tip. Compared to the other tips, the rest of them are all musically related after this, but this one is just a good productivity suggestion. And it's not just about the phone. He specifies the phone, but distractions. When you're mixing, it's one of those tasks where your focus needs to be 100% on it. And I know because every time I try to mix, if I try to watch something off to the side or do 2 things at once, my mix always suffers because of it. And I think the real key to that first tip isn't just the phone. It's turn off all the distractions that might be going on around you as you focus on laying down a track or mixing it or anything like that. That's how you get ready to get into a mixing zone.
Definitely.
It is an important tip.
Hell yeah.
So now number 2, we're going into templating, and this is something me and Glenn have been talking about for all sorts of different things, not just templating in music, but templating in video, 3D production, everything. I tend to create my templates once I know what the hell I'm doing regularly.
Pretty much in anything, you just create a process template. Like you figure out what works and, you know, ways to make it better. And as you hone that, it becomes the way you do it. And that becomes your template of how to do it next time. So you can snap in and just start very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. The way you know that you're finally finding your flow and sound in mixing is when you start making templates. The moment you start making templates, you're defining your process. I use certain buses all the time in every project. I use certain type. Jason was telling me how, like, you know, his template strategy, he has like 4 or 5 certain tracks that are always in there because he's always laying down that bass track, always laying down that guitar track. Certain pieces that are always going to be part of that template.
Yeah, the fundamentals, the foundation. Let's see what he's got.
We like for certain genres, a certain plugin combination for snare drum, another for the guitars. If you get a mix of something you really like, take a snapshot template and apply it to another mix. If it's within the same band's project, certain things should translate from one song to the next. Same kick, snare, bass guitar, you name it. This is the method that I picked up while working with Fredrik Nordstrom back on 2009's Betrayer album. Figure out what works from song to song and mark down the tracks that need individual processing, like extra lead guitars and harmonies or certain vocal parts. The rubber stamp doesn't always work in every situation, but it can save you an awful lot of time. This is how a lot of the bigger studios do it with outboard gear as well. They've got certain processors for simple tasks, like an 1176 on a snare drum or a Pultec for a guitar bus. You can take the same approach and save yourself a lot of time. The trick is to use templates as a jumping off point and not as a single setting for every single situation. Then you wind up with mass-produced music and that just sucks. Number 3, top-down mastering.
Yes, that's what you're trying to avoid.
Yep. Commercials.
That's that. You want the templates to be time savers, but you don't want them to become like, you know, you don't want them to flatten your sound by always doing the same thing either. You want to be able to build from the template.
When we started talking about that too, we were talking about the ones in BandLab using a preset, for example, for a vocal or for a guitar track or whatever. Like jumping into a quick preset to see how it sounds is one thing, but using that as a jumping off point and then saying, okay, well, I really don't need this part, or this is too much of this or too little of that.
If you're really sculpting your sound, you're adjusting that preset. Even if you find a great reverb on BandLab's presets, you should try tweaking the room size or, you know, the decay level. Change some of those properties on that effect to see what you can mold to your sound, and then eventually that preset becomes your preset with your changes.
Yep. And again, it's going to change from song to song.
Those presets are good starting points. Yeah, sometimes you want to sound like you're in a bigger room, and sometimes you want to sound like you're in a smaller room. You don't just always want to use the same room.
Mixing and mastering a project from start to finish and won't be handing the mixes off to a third-party mastering house, then master from the top down. What this means is to put the mastering process on your main mix bus and basically mix through the mastering process. I've used this method on every single project I've done since 2010, and like a lot of modern mixing techniques, the idea was stolen from Andy Steep. What I suggest is a bus glue compressor such as an SSL or similar, a 4:1 ratio, 30 millisecond attack, auto release, and aim for 4 dBs of compression. This will help keep your bottom end from jumping around too much and help speed up your whole mix process. And then send the mix into a Waves L3 or something similar to trim the peaks and control the overall volume level. I like to use the Waves WLM meter to monitor the overall output. Now, the flatline mastering limiter from Submission Audio will also do the same thing, and the added bonus, it has the meter built right in. For YouTube, I shoot for a 12 LUFS level, and I'll probably
beautiful
go
visuals.
a little bit louder for a client's disc, depending on how loud they want it. The trick is to set a level for one song's average volume and apply it across the project. Make sure the song's heads and tails are clean with all the amp noise and other crap muted and proper fade outs applied. This can save you a fortune on mastering. These days, I'm using pretty much the exact same.
And a ton of time.
These days, I'm using the Gain Labs Audio Dictator Tube Very Mute compressor instead of a software SSL sim. I downloaded it a few months.
I would really like to check this out.
I use it on everything because
I wish I could get my hands on one.
Number 4, mix as you track. This is something I'll do if I'm tracking a band. I'll add in some mix processing as we go along. A few edits here, a few tweaks, a few simple mix moves during the tracking, so I have to spend less time dicking around when it actually comes time to mix. Now, during the days of analog tape, tracking and mixing were very different processes and many times happened in completely different studios. The DAW allows you to work outside that rigid framework. The more you do during the recording process means the less you'll have to do to get the project out the door. In my case, I'll have certain tracking templates to work from depending on the instrument, especially with the drums. I've got certain favorite setups and plugins I like to work with, and loading them up individually for tracking each song across an EP and album would just be a tremendous waste of time. Just be careful to not use any plugins that have a look-ahead feature during tracking, as that will throw off timing for monitoring in headphones.
Yeah.
Plugins like Drum Leveler are fantastic for mixing, but will really mess with the drummer's mind when they're tracking, as he'll hit a drum and hear the result half a second later in the phones. In my case, I'll have separate templates for tracking and mixing, but the idea here is to have a clear vision of what you're going for and start down the path early in the process.
Definitely.
Again, great advice that like I've just started doing his approach in like the last 6 months, using those preview buses to see what like the mastering is going to sound like, and also tracking as you're recording, as you're laying down your tracks and setting some of the levels and maybe some of the effects that you might use later as you're laying down the tracks. That isn't a bad approach to like kill some early stuff before you go into your mix. But just like he said, if you get too carried away mixing before you're done making the tracks, you can mess yourself up as you're trying to make the other tracks.
And
drummers would experience it, singers.
Yeah. And you can overwork your DAW as well.
Yes. That's the main reason not to. That's the reason to try to avoid doing too much live monitoring and tracking. As when you're recording your track, there's a lot of work already going on. The computer's having to record to the hard drive. It's trying to get you at 0 latency, depending on what audio device you have. There's already enough work going on there. You add that overhead and you can affect your latency. It can end up messing up the recording you're trying to get because you're stepping on it while it's trying to do all that work. So it's a bit smarter approach to try to do those things later. But one of the suggestions he had there about using a mastering bus, the approach that he's doing there is hearing what the output is going to sound like when you're hearing it all mixed together, and the compression you might use, the things you might do in mastering. By using a bus to do that, you can always put on a different set of headphones, hear what's going on there, take the headphones off, go back to the mixing headphones, and get back to your mixing. And you can always go preview what it's going to sound like when you go do all that stuff. And that's always useful. While you're mixing, it's useful to be able to hear what that mastering process is going to do to that mix, because you'll be adjusting your mix to compensate for that.
Yeah, otherwise you can go too far down a bunch of different roads.
Yeah, you can spend all this time mixing, get to the mastering process, listen to the master, and then realize like, damn, I have to adjust this on the mix because the mastering smushes this or enhances this other part. Oh, looks like we got Lit in the house. How's it going, Lit?
Might still be
Getting the
connected.
sound set up.
Somebody joining?
Yeah, Lit just dropped in. Lit triple X. Well, let's see what he has to say about these mix buses.
Yep.
Because this is the crux of his advice, and it's the one that I follow the most. I'm a big bus advocate. Since I started doing the bus mixing method, it has saved my computer a ton of processing and so much better control over how I use effects and where I use effects. Doing buses gives you a level of control that you just don't get when you apply your effects track by track.
Yeah.
Every track has its own effects, its own settings. It's a hard way to do a mix.
Its own
This
overhead.
bus approach, everybody should learn it. Even if you don't use it, you should learn it and learn its benefits.
Yeah.
This took me forever to get my head around and start working with these. But you really, truly can save a shit ton of time by mixing with buses. That's where you take similar tracks and sum them to a single stereo fader, so you get drums, guitar, and keyboard faders instead of 12 individual drum mics, 8 guitar mics, and 397 keyboard tracks because the overzealous twit couldn't make up his fucking mind. I use this in Reaper all the time. I've normally got 3 guitar mics on a cabinet, track twice, and
It's true.
Tracks. It's just not a great idea to treat those individually. If you output all those to a single fader, you can treat the guitars as a whole. Apply one EQ across all the tracks, apply a single multiband compressor, and so on. Suddenly, you've gone from adjusting 30 or 40 faders across an entire mix to adjusting 5 or 6. This will make your life easier and allow you to get results far quicker. Try it out. Number 6, outsource the drum edits. This one can take forever, especially if you're working with one of those bands that insists that every single beat be timeline and they're playing tech metal. Chances are the drummer isn't even anywhere near the beat, and you'll have to spend most of your time deciphering what exactly he was trying to play. Now, I've certainly worked on enough of these editing sessions to prefer pouring iodine into an open wound over spending my time editing this shit, but hey, in the name of destroying individuality and creativity on the ultra-modern metal, it shall be done. Look around for some drum editing services. There's plenty of guys on Fiverr who are looking for work. Who knows? You might find the right person. Even if they don't get it 100%, chances
And for
are
those looking to work,
far enough
there's good work there
finish it off
for people
far
who want to work in music.
just doing it by yourself. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand there are some drummers out there that can play at this level. But let's be honest. They're not coming to your studio. You're going to be dealing with the local band that's dreaming of hitting the big time. It's your job to make them sound like they deserve to be there. Sure, they'll never be able to pull it off live, but that's their problem, not yours. Number 7, cock blocker. Now talk about
This one really intrigues me too.
I spent many
I'd like to
an
get my
hour
hands on
only
this.
editing the noise out of the rests in my metal guitar tracks. It's tedious, time-consuming, and this whole edit process is now completely obsolete thanks to the cock blocker plugin. We wanted to do a plug-in version of the infamous pedal, and originally I wasn't exactly thrilled with the idea. However, after trying it out and applying it to my mixes, I realized I don't need to edit this shit anymore. The plugin will do the job for me. All you need to do is take a DI track and sidechain it to the cock blocker, and suddenly, BAM! No more editing. I would have fucking killed to have this plugin back in 2002. In fact, we put it on sale this week for the 4th of July over at Spectre Digital, and you can pick up a copy for only $37. Grab your copy today. The sale's going to end Sunday night. Number 8, monitors. Simply put, get the best monitors you can afford. This is the one place that is absolutely critical that you spend the money. You have to be able to hear what you're doing with accuracy. Now, I've had a lot of different sets of monitors in here over the years. KRK V8s, Event ASP8, Atom A7X, KS Digital, and now the Atom S2V.
I've had a couple of those. Those are awesome.
Even better work these days with the Atom S2V. You guys have certainly mentioned it, that my mixes have been getting a lot better as of late. I'll chalk part of that up to the monitor, because if you cheap out on your monitors, you're gonna be struggling. And I mean the really shitty ones, like the green Mackeys. Fuck, are those things ever terrible.
Look, Ange, they're green.
I'd recommend the Cali LP6 or LP8. They're definitely best in class for the lower end price point. Mid-grains, I'd say the Atom A7X, and the higher end, once again, the Atom S2V. Have them set up at your ear level, not down on your desk. It's very important so you don't get skewed results. Monitors are supposed to tell you exactly what's going on. They work even better when you set them up so you can actually hear them. You want them set up with your head being the apex of an equilateral triangle. The monitor's aimed to converge just behind where your head is. It's a simple concept, but I'm shocked by how many times I've seen setups.
Those should be
as clear turns as I possibly
be
can.
higher.
Hearing your mix accurately will speed up your
Up your ear
workflow
level, yeah.
and help you get the final mix faster. Number 9.
Higher.
Ah, yes, the one thing so many home studio mix engineers completely ignore, and probably the most important thing next to the monitors. I said this so many times that I'd rather work in a room with $2,000 worth of studio gear and $2,000 worth of treatment instead of an untreated room with $100,000 worth of gear.
Your ears, then you're not hearing the actual.
You can't make any permanent changes to the room.
Like,
And you're going to let that stop you? Why is this mission impossible? Look,
what happened in the
you can
sound?
imagine yourself as a world-famous record producer with a wall full of platinum albums. Why the hell can't you imagine some ways to hang some bass traps without marking up your walls? Grab some mic stands and some baling wire and hang your traps from those. Or stack them up in a corner. If you've got a closet in your room, hang a bunch of shirts in it and space them apart so there's an air gap in between them, and arrange your room so that speakers are facing towards that closet. I did this before and it revealed some seriously ugly flaws in my mixes from my very first studio as I was finally able to hear what the fuck was going on in the bottom end. Don't have money to spend on commercial bass traps? I'll have a link to the episode that I did on how to build your own for about $40 each at the end of the video. They really work, and I've even got some before and after clips so you can hear exactly what the fuck is going on. And the best part, you don't have to permanently attach them to your walls. Now, if you're still too cheap to do that, you can buy an old bunch of clothes at
And
your
that's it.
hand shop, throw them into garbage bags, and place those into the corners of your mix room.
What's that?
Or go to Home Depot and buy a bag of insulation. Just don't take it out of the bag. Throw that in your corners. Guess what? Exact same effect. Now, they're pretty fucking ugly, but they will do the job. Dave Velez showed me that trick, and I've got to say, that's damn clever. It's even doubly impressive when you consider the fact that he's a drummer. Number 10, check your mix everywhere. Another mistake that so many home mix engineers make, not checking your mixes on other sources. Now, if you ignored all that nonsense about monitors and room treatment, chances are you'll ignore this next bit of advice as well. That's absolutely fine, and I can't wait to hear your Grammy acceptance speech. The easiest way to check your mix is to try it out in the real world. Print a CD, dump it onto a USB stick. Listen to your mix on your car stereo, or more than likely, listen to your mix on your mom's car stereo. Hell, I did test mixes on the second Woods of Ypres disc while borrowing my mother-in-law's car. I used to drive a 1982 Ram pickup with a slant 6 back in those days, and the stereo on it was fucking garbage, so I'd borrow my mother-in-law's car. Great stereo, and it really let me know how the mixes were holding up. Play your mixes on your home stereo, your boombox, anything that's outside of your studio so you can hear the single most important factor of your mixes, translation. Great monitors are great to have, but if you've got an issue with your mixes sounding completely different in your car, then you've got a problem with your mix room acoustics. And that's the biggest problem with mixing in a home studio, being able to hear the bass accurately. Because of the limitations of a small room, certain low-end frequencies are very difficult to hear, and you can have some ugly surprises in the real world. I learned this a hard way in my first studio, which was built in a basement. Turns out it had a giant null right around the 100 hertz mark at my mix position, so my mixes would always wind up way too bass heavy. Like stupid shitloads of bass that were just way too overwhelming. This was because the concrete walls of that basement were reflecting the low end back at me out of phase. So I'd add a lot more bass to compensate, which is exactly what the mix did not need. Once I got into the new studio here, it really cleaned up a lot of the issues. But the ultimate test of the low end is the car. If it works well there, it'll work well anywhere. These days, I'll not only check my mixes in the car, I'll bring my laptop and finish my mixes in the car. Cars are great acoustic environments. There's no parallel surfaces and no thick walls. Once the bass leaves the interior, it doesn't get bounced back in out of phase. Now, if you've ever heard an idiot in a Fast and Furious wannabe car drive by with a subwoofer cranked too loud, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the one spot I can guarantee that you're going to hear the bass accurately. Bring along some of your favorite mixes and set your stereo up so they sound great on that. Now plug your laptop right into the stereo and make your adjustments.
Yeah, how it translates is very important, and definitely in the car is the big one, and any other source other than your speakers where you normally do your mixing is very important.
Yeah, hell, the car is becoming popular for people to record in. Coco loves doing it in her car. You get it's a cheap vocal booth. It's there.
Exactly.
It's not a bad approach. I wish I had a car worth going in to mix.
Yeah.
Number 11, batch processing. If you've got a major project or you've got something with more than one song you want to mix, you can grab a program like Batch Butler and you can export all your songs all at the same time. So you can just basically set the computer up and go do whatever else you've got to do. Like call your clients up and ask, where the hell's my money? Like many of you have to do. I'm sure there are some other great batch processors out there. If you guys have some suggestions, leave them in the comments below because I'm always down for learning new things. Number 12, the one recall policy. If you're dumb enough to charge flat rates, you deserve exactly what you're going to get, especially when it comes to mix recalls. The clients will burn up your time demanding the most inane, microscopic mix adjustments that serve no actual purpose in some vain attempt to achieve perfection. It's amazing how fast this changes from, we absolutely must have the bass come up 0.5 dB at the bridge to, nah man, sounds great, once they have to pay you for your time. I've got a very simple policy for bands. You get one recall. That's it. Anything else is full hourly rate. They always come back for some minor tweaks the first time, and then they never come back after that. Works well for everybody. Number 13, mixes are never finished, they're only abandoned. Like paintings and movies, your work
surrendered.
is truly finished. You can always improve on it. The trick is to be smart enough to realize that you're beating a dead horse and that it is time to move the fuck on. Knowing when you hit this point does take experience, and the only way to get to that point is to just do it. Mixing is like learning an instrument. You've got to put in your time. The 10,000 hour rule certainly applies to mixing. Now, I've certainly gone through the stage where I can write final mix on the end of a song title, and then final mix A, final mix B, final mix C, so on and so forth. As you gain experience,
that's what I do.
yourself creating less versions of your final mix and achieving your goals faster. Hopefully this video can help you streamline your process a little bit, but ultimately your success completely depends on you. So what are you doing sitting there watching me? Get busy!
Yep, that's a Spectre Sound Studio.
I like his attitudes. Spectra Media Group, Spectre Sound Studios on YouTube. Everybody who wants to improve their mixing, follow this dude. He is a genius at that, especially if you are metal mixers. He's got some really great stuff specifically for how to deal with the out of control, splash cymbals and razor sharp guitars and all the challenges that you have when you're recording metal.
So the one is one for an EQ trick,
and he presents it in a very metal kind of way.
Yeah.
And another one's about headphones instead of studio monitors.
I would rather mix with headphones at this point, just for the kind of surgical mixing that I do. If it wasn't for the headphones, there's a lot of things I would miss when I'm mixing to monitors that I do catch on headphones. I hear everything with my headphones these days. These Tascams that I'm using now have just opened up. Yeah, you have great ones. I'd like to get my hands on those.
The T35.
But a lot of the reason why he doesn't. Yeah, those are those the Boses? The Boses?
The Bose, yes, the Q35 too, I believe.
Yeah.
They are. Very nice.
Yeah, and a big reason why he doesn't have to do a lot of revisions anymore is some of those tips that he's talking about, the bus mixing, the master preview bus, things like that plug-in, the cock blocker, all those things eventually make it so you don't need revision E, F, G. With those things, 2 or 3 revisions, if you have not gotten your what you're trying to accomplish within like your 3rd revision, then it's time to start like going back to the tracks you're working on and why are you not getting to that final sound you're looking for, because then it's like I need to fix a track. Maybe there's a part that you don't like how it was performed, or there's a level that you didn't manage to get, and you have to go back to the drawing board at that point if you're going to revision C, revision D. Otherwise, you're trying to put lipstick on a pig at that point.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
not with
it
mixing.
starts at your,
If you do
it's-
that, I trust you. Trust me that like other sound engineers will hear it every time you do it.
it starts at your input volume. If you're clipping there, you're screwed. You
Yeah.
can't take
Yes.
it out.
Having
Yeah, well, that's
well-behaved
why you
signals
should
to
be
start with,
looking.
yeah.
Look at your wave.
Yeah.
When you're recording that track, look at the wave you're producing. Ask yourself, for the instrument that, like a bass track, me and Glenn have been looking at a bunch of different instruments and looking at their waves when we're looking at, all the tracks together. A bass track waveform has a nice small wave that's nice and in the center. Guitars, the wave's a little bigger, usually a little flashier, but normal, good input, your waves should look consistently somewheres in the center and to halfway, the center to halfway relationship in the wave. That's what you're looking for. If you're hitting that ceiling or that floor, adjust your signal,
Yeah.
because you shouldn't be with like, a bass or a guitar. With drums, yes, if you're those cymbal hits and the big splashy shit, you'll get those peaks that like
Right.
get to the top, but they shouldn't pound the top. If you see
Right.
stuff pounding the top and staying up there, you're too hot. Your signal's
Yeah.
got to come down.
And even the signal towards the center, like with a
And
bass
once you
track,
get
like you're
used to
saying,
that,
even a well-behaved signal in the center can sound plenty loud when you get it in the mix.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if everything looks good and it's fitting inside the decibel space of that wave, and you listen to it afterwards, if you can hear everything, and even if something sounds a little quieter than you want to, if you can hear everything that you're supposed to hear, then you got a good capture. And after that, you can improve the elements that you want with just a little EQ. Just a little adjustment here or there, you can bring the cymbal hits up and still keep the bass snare in the nice middle with their hits. Then EQ comes in handy. Get a good signal, then EQ it to perfection, and from there, you got a working track.
Yep. The source material. So this one is about the metal guitar.
Yeah, with vocalists are the ones who should pay the most attention to calibration of their signal. Getting that mic calibrated doesn't take a lot of work, and it's worth the 45 minutes to an hour of testing distance, get the perfect signal for that mic. And once you get that, like what he was saying with tip number 2, template that input settings for that mic, it's not going to change. Mics don't change unless you change audio interfaces or you change something else. A mic won't change once you have it set up and calibrated.
Even
And
the
it's
absorption
worth
in
the
the room.
time to do it. Otherwise, some people just like, they just take what the dog gives them at whatever signal things are set to.
Mhm.
And not all interfaces, when it comes to mic preamps, are created equal. Like Joe uses a Zoom mixer, and I bet you on your mic channels, when you have mics in there, I bet you your input might be somewhere between 50 to 75%. And where it is, the sweet spot on your Zoom mixer isn't going to be the same place that, say, a Focusrite would be at. The Focusrites tend to be great in the middle. So I found with the Scarletts, you know, a 50% input signal on a mic that's set up good with phantom power is usually the sweet spot. And you really only have to push it up a little bit if you know the mic itself doesn't have the dynamic range and you want to give it a little more sizzle. Plus on the Scarletts, they have this air feature that when you activate that, it gives that mic preamp a little more sizzle, a little more boost. And sometimes that's all you really need to take it to that like level that you want it to be at. I'm really impressed with the airy feature on those Scarletts. For people out there who are looking to go from phones to a computer interface and using a good mic that way, the Scarletts come with great mic preamps for the singers out there that are doing that evolution.
Yes,
They're so cost efficient and they give you a lot of bang for their buck with that.
they do.
Otherwise, I would go with the Zoom.
Right.
Your Zoom mixer,
Yeah.
if you're willing to spend a little bit more, the Zoom choice gives you a lot more. You get more digital buses because with the Zooms, each track and each channel is an individual channel to the DAW. It's a multi-channel recorder. It can actually record on each one at the same time. It's worth the extra money. I almost went with the Zoom back in February. I chose a Mackie for other reasons, but that Zoom was my number one contender against my Mackie.
Yeah, I mean, input for input, it's about the same price, but you got 8 inputs to play with, so $400. You've got 4 interfaces working simultaneously, so it's good
for a live recording session. If you took that to say one of these open mics, if there was a band over there and they said, "Oh, hey Joe, can you come and record us?" You'd be able to go in with that thing and get line signals for each one of the bassist, the guitarist, the singer, each one of those line signals. You'd be able to get that into your Zoom and then to Cakewalk, and Cakewalk would record each one of those simultaneously.
Yeah. Pop some
you wouldn't have to accept a stereo output of the whole Zoom mix. You could literally get each one of those as their own tracks. That's valuable.
Right. For sure. Now that Scarlett you were mentioning,
compared to your,
it pays for itself. My buddy Robert, he's got one of those, and it comes with a bunch of free software. Like once a year, it'll give you access to some more. It's very keyboard friendly, you know, like synthesizers and software and all that.
And they throw in, like you said, they throw in like everything but the kitchen sink and software.
Yeah, they do.
They give you a good DAW to work with. I think they're Ableton friendly. Like every musical gear you seem to buy these days, you'll get a copy of Ableton with it, and it does come with a bunch of VSTs and synthesizers. You might not need if you're just getting it for a singer, but it certainly doesn't hurt to play with some of that software that it comes with. It can help you to make beats. And that's even their like Solo, the $129 box comes with all that software.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go to the like Duo or the Quad, you know, you don't have to spend $400 to get all that stuff. It actually comes with even their entry level one.
Yeah.
Plus, they also they're kind of going the iRig route now, and they're supporting the Lightning port. So when you're talking like moving from your phone to your computer, if you do get one of these Lightning port Focusrites or the iRigs, you have the benefit of this thing will work with your phone or your computer, whichever DAW you're using in either of those. This is an audio interface that will connect you on both. That's versatile.
Crazy.
Bridge between, nice. Yeah,
not everybody's going to jump right on when when you fill up your phone, like BandLab will fill up your phone. The main reason I have sold as many Scarletts in the last year, well, I haven't sold them, but the main reason why I've recommended them to people as they try to get off their phones was because when BandLab started to really blow up, everybody's phones were filling up, and the biggest complaint that people were coming at me was, oh my god, I had to uninstall the BandLab app because I had no room left on my phone and I didn't have anything else on there. That's how much it will take of your space on your phone. So migrating to the computer, which a lot of these people want to do, and then they start thinking, well, if I'm going to do that, now I can use a real mic, I can get a good mic. And the challenge there, and the price doesn't have to, like, break the bank. The Scarlett and a good mic package together is $159. That's cheaper than most of the phones that people are using to record this shit on.
And better sound quality. And since you're going to a computer, unlimited storage, technically.
You're no longer limited by those things like the storage, or the funny thing is the phones are actually fast enough when it comes to CPU and all the other stuff. The phone's not really an obstacle there, but storage space, hell yeah. Phones don't come with terabytes of hard drive space.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe hit a dead spot.
Yep. Popped him out of there. He was in traffic, it looked like. Driving along.
Yeah, it's that corner on the street. It's that corner on the street where the Wi-Fi dies.
If you're ready for that next one, it was the EQ trick for the metal guitars.
Oh, he's got an EQ trick on metal, huh? Yeah, let's check this out. This is where I need to improve on EQ.
The 30 hertz trick.
Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode of SMG Tutorial Tuesdays. So I hope you guys are digging this series. If you do, please.
Tutorial Tuesdays.
And the bell. So
I do dig it.
Here's a hint to all you bass players out there. They come out on Tuesdays. Anyway, so today I want to show you guys a real neat trick on metal guitars that was taught to me by my friend Chad Kelly, who of course stole it from Andy Sneap, like we do with most of modern metal recording techniques. This one's a little different. This one took me a minute to get my head around. I'm like, we could do this? Really? This works? And this all centers around using a Pultec style passive EQ on metal guitars in the post-processing phase. Now, you guys remember this thing. This is the video this is from the video I did, the greatest metal guitar tone I ever got in my life, which was by accident by using that OC818 mic. And we got this. Yeah, played that for Eric Arco, who played the guitars on that. He was just like, holy shit, man. And, played it for Jackson Ward and Alex Nazzle. Everyone's like, damn, those guitars are insane. So first and foremost, we're using, of course, the OC818 with its incredible Puller Designer software. And, we got a front mic and a back mic. So that's front element by itself. Bring in that rear element, it just it does something so amazing. And don't forget, you can grab the Austrian Audio Puller Designer for absolutely free. It's open source. It's fucking cool. Now that's part of the equation right there. The other part is a lot of EQing in the top end and bottom end, a little bit of C4, that kind of thing. And in my case, a little stereo widening with the PSP Infinity Strip. Actually, did I use that? Yes, I did. Put this on. Turn this off. Wow. Yeah, I forgot that. The great thing about the PSP is the master control has a little stereo width control. Like, let's hear this in the mix. I'll punch this in and out. It's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Just gives it that lift. I don't even have any EQ going on there. I've got a little bit of the Reek EQ going on, and there's a lot going on, in the top and bottom. The whole reason there is explained in depth in Scott Elliott's guitar tone mastery course. And he kind of teaches you his whole system of what to look for, what to listen for, and how to apply it to your own recordings. If you haven't got a copy of Guitar Tone Mastery yet, and you record metal guitar at home, especially if you're doing amp sims, that kind of thing, this is the course you need. Anyway, link to that in the description below, but more on this in a second. And this is something I kind of came across thanks to Chad Kelly, inventor of the Signal Art reamp boxes, which are just absolutely stellar. I absolutely love these things to death. He sent me a couple of reamp boxes there a couple weeks back, brand new one, and then he had one called the Angry Reamp.
Man, he's lucky. These people are sending him boxes.
And I'm like, what the hell is that all about?
Oh, yeah.
And the whole idea here is you pull up a Pultec style EQ and put it on your guitar bus. In this case, we've got 8 guitar channels going to this fader right here. If we look on the side here, you can see all these mic, front mic, back mic. Okay, all those are going right to the guitar bus and are controlled by one simple fader. So what we're doing is we're adding a Pultec style EQ to the subsonic frequencies. And this gets really interesting on metal guitar. We punch this out. This is what the effect off. Watch what happens when we hit it here. Now, it might be getting a little bit saturated there because the way how this circuit works. So we pull this back to like 3 dBs. That's very clean.
And that's very simple to implement.
Now, this is the thing. I've got an IGS rubber bands mastering equalizer that's basically a stepped Pultec in solid state, and it is absolutely phenomenal. That's back home in Windsor, but I've been using that on a couple of mixes and just absolutely loving the whole idea. And this is the trick here. What we're doing is we're boosting at 30 hertz and cutting at 30 hertz at the same time, so we get this weird...
Now, why 30? Can you explain that?
Thing.
It's the subharmonic of like
we're
a
boosting
low
at
B.
30 hertz because we hit the cut as well, and because they don't quite hit the same frequencies the right way, everything above 30 hertz gets notched down a little bit, and the guitars winds up getting cleaned up a little bit. I've also got a healthy boost.
So sort of like compression, basically compressing at the 30 hertz level.
And it's going down to the fundamental, yeah.
EQ curve. We can get away with cranking this up, and it's very smooth. Like we take this up.
That's the brightness.
That's the boost. Yep. Boost on the high end. I'm sorry, that's a 16 channel.
Guitar Tone Mastery course for really what to listen for there. Anyway, so we got all this happening, and that's with the Waves Puig Tech. I've also got the Tube Tech by Soft Tube, and this is the thing at Harmony. We actually had some real Tube Tech Pultecs in the rack. And if you guys ever listen to that Like a Fujin cover that I did with Trey Watts and Eric Arco, we had that EQ going on all over the drums, actually. Killer stuff. So we're going to punch this out, and this one's a little bit cleaner. It's a little less raunchy sounding, but it's still, it really does have that desired effect. We turn this on.
Oh,
Punch
wow.
This one to me seems to sound like it has a little bit more headroom before it gets a little too gnarly sounding on the guitars. So I'm going to take you guys through this and show you exactly what's going on. So what we want to do is we want to hit the low frequency. We're not even going to bother with this part down here. Can we just turn that off? Yeah, that's off. Okay, great. We're just going to hit 30 hertz here. We're not going to touch any of these frequencies. We're going to, except for this, we're going to put the boost at 16 kilohertz. And we're going to take it up to 6, 6, and 6. Watch what happens. Now that's what the bottom end boosted and cut at the same time. I know it sounds weird and it's totally counterintuitive, but if you actually read the charts of what a Pultec does, it makes sense. So we got that going on. That's off. what it's actually doing is it's adding some harmonic overtones in the low frequencies, you know, in the spectrum that we can hear. Like 30 hertz is really fucking low. Like human spectral hearing is supposed to end at 40 hertz. So we're actually doing a little bit of boosting below that. And because we're adding the attenuation, it's
This is some of that subliminal layering that I was talking about the other night.
Yep, getting
definitely
super
gets more
low.
pronounced as we crank it up.
Where my voice lives.
Even more.
Yeah. We still hear. We hear in those ranges. We just don't hear it out on the surface. We hear it in the back of our heads.
It's also what you feel, yeah.
Our brain processes the sound. Yeah, our brains process the sound.
You're in the lower mids, but we're also thinning out the sound a little bit, which is really bizarre. That's with it boosted all the way. And then cut. Put that in the mix.
It gives it a nice lift on the low end.
Now, I know a few of you guys were like, oh, what's up with that snare? Well, if you're ever a fan of the Black Album snare, that was one of my all-time favorite snare drums. That's the closest I've ever come to getting that sound. I'm really happy with that result. I'm going to do a full episode on that. Just make sure I got my verb working correctly. Oh, hang on. There we go. Yep. So, yeah, absolutely love that rhythm tone. And that's with the Tube Tech. And we are getting a slightly different flavor. We go from Tube Tech to the Waves version, which is the Puig Tech. Let's just solo up the guitars here. Take a listen to the two different ones.
The Waves really got a nice punch.
Yep.
That's a little less clean. That's a little bit snarlier, and apparently it's modeled after Jack's personal Pultec.
But it's got more punch.
Of course, yeah, we didn't put the boost on the Tube Tech one yet, did we? So what I like to do is add a bit of 16 kilohertz. This is after we've already rolled off a lot of the top, just to bring the air back, but not to the point where it's irritating.
It's compensating with that. Yeah.
Putting a little bite back in.
I hear it. Yeah.
And again, we'll go back to the Pultec here, or the Puig Tech. Turn that off. We're going to just compare the two. Let's turn on the Puig Tech, and then we're going to go to the Tube Tech, and then back to the Puig Tech, and back and forth. A little hairy. That's really got something cool going on in the bottom end. Now, notice I had to pull the gain back on this because if we zero this out, it gets
I like that rhythm, the sound of the rhythm guitar that's doing the dum dum dum.
Yep.
It's filling out nicely. It's what you want to do with those
pull this back a bit.
sounds.
Take a listen. I like that. That's super cool. Try that back in the mix here.
Yes.
Of course, mind you, I'm still getting my feet wet with mixing on headphones, so hopefully everything sounds reasonably balanced here. Hopefully I haven't screwed anything up too badly. All right, now the big question is, I'm sure a lot of you guys have, but Glenn, is there a freeware version of that? Yes, there is. It doesn't quite function the same way, I find, but this is from the guys who did Ignite Emissary. It's a very cool freeware plugin. This one I find I have to boost a little bit harder to get it to react the same way. We're going to take this EQ out, and we're going to take this EQ out. We're just going to focus on this middle section here. This is called the PTEQX, and I think you can find this on KVR and a couple other different free plugin sites. I'll have some links in the description, of course. Same kind of idea. You can get that raunchy bottom end thing going on, but you got to hit this one a little bit differently. It's not quite as even. It's not quite as precise. Again, I'm at 30 hertz, boosting up. And 16 hertz boost as well. This one seems a little bit more aggressive with the boost in the top. But for the low price of absolutely free, I think that's pretty damn cool. Again, let's go back to the Puig Tech, just for a quick listen here, and just listen to them solo it up. I like that a lot. And then we go back here. That one definitely has a lot more headroom, no question about it. So it's not getting as coagulated. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. As much as the Puig Tech is, that's for sure. Not bad, though. That's actually pretty damn cool. And again, I've been using this on not just on this mix. I've been using it on other mixes as well. I was using it on that kind of Men in the Box type song Eric and Jackson did a while back. Same kind of thing with the OCA818. We got that going on right here as well. Make a couple adjustments here. Cool. All right, so that's my 30 hertz Pultec trick. So just remember, if you got one in like one of your plugin suites, try it out. If not, go check out the freeware version. It's pretty damn neat. Try it on your guitars. Remember, 30 hertz, boost, and cut, and try it out. See how it works for you. Anyway, that's Tutorial Tuesdays. If you guys like the show, please let me know, because I want to hear from you guys. Leave a comment if you got episode suggestions, that kind of stuff. I'm always got my ears open for that kind of thing. So I'm into checking out plugins, just showing cool little mix techniques, that kind of thing. But I would definitely recommend this. And of course, if you really want to get your head around working with metal guitar tones, I'd recommend you check out my course, Total Heavy Guitar, or Scott Elliott's course, Guitar Tone Mastery, which is focused towards amp sims and impulse responses and all that cool stuff. You'll definitely get your head around EQing guitars and working with them much more effectively to get them to work in your mixes better and get the kind of mixes you're after.
Like that shit, Glenn.
Yep.
As well. Now, the other cool thing we're going to be doing with this series is we're going to be making the multi-tracks available for download for absolutely free. So if you want to grab those, there's a link in the description below. And if you're a Reaper user, I'm also including the Reaper project file so you can take this mix, deconstruct it, and see what you like, what you don't like, how you would do things differently, all that good stuff. And of course, if you're a Reaper user and you still haven't quite got your head around what I'm doing here and you need to grasp a little bit more of the fundamentals, grab Adam Steele's Ultimate Reaper Guide. He'll take you through the entire process from setup to tracking a song to mixing to mastering. It's only $97 and it is absolutely phenomenal. If you're a Reaper guy and you haven't got it yet and you don't know what you're doing, it's the course designed exactly for you. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, notification bell, all that good stuff, and I will keep this series coming.
All right. So yeah, it's Spectre Sound Studio.
I need to. I will.
Chopping up a little bit, talking about the Reaper course though. Yeah.
I, I would subscribe to him. It's great advice, and I'm not good with EQ. You know, the band approach, and I think Snave was just mentioned subtractive EQ. I, I'm still and all that, but I like these plugins and there are different frequencies and things that you can with EQs. You focus more on, you know, a little the boosting and the little adjustments to the EQ, and the magic kind of happens in the background. I like these EQ plugins. For me, it's a good way to learn more about what's going on with the EQ in the background without
Yep.
having to become an expert in it off the bat. Because I've spent years trying to get better at the EQing mixing. I lose sounds when I'm mixing on my tracks and I try to like play with the EQ bands. Eventually, I lose what I'm listening to as I'm playing with the EQ bands. You know, it's not like when you're dealing with tracks and you can solo and isolate something and listen to it. When you're EQing, you got to kind of like raise your focus on the frequency that you're really messing with, and sometimes you get lost as you move it up and down.
And that's also where a narrow cue helps too. Like if you're trying to isolate something that's like a room hum, for example, and you're trying to cut something out that's in that low, low section of the band, you don't want to
Yeah.
drop all the bass out. You don't want to cut that whole shelf. You just want to try to find that narrow slice.
And you got to find it in the frequency range. Veronica's husband Louis helped me to like grasp how frequency isolation works, and which instruments, which sounds are hitting in these spectrums across the band, and that did help a lot. It's gotten me to start to explore.
I have a couple of pictures actually. We should look
5
at
band
for
to
that.
7 band to 11, 13, all the different bands as you get more and more of a bigger EQ. Getting to know those exact places where that's where the snare hides, and that's where the bass drum hides.
Exactly. And then if you got, microphone feedback is going to be in this one or this one, and you're finding where those are as well.
Yeah, general noise like goes into certain low bands.
Yep, for the resonance, yeah. And that's also where
or
those
certain high bands, depending on how crappy that noise is.
Those blue cats where you can see the visual, you can see what's coming into which sections and how strongly they're coming in. So you can see which sections are getting overpowered by, whatever. And that's where you can dial in and say, okay, we need to pull some out from right there to kind of counteract where the peak is of all the noise coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, and the blue cats actually do have a couple of really advanced EQs in their plugins. Aside from the mixing, which is the one where I really played the most with, their EQ stuff is just as versatile. Awesome, like visuals that you can just see your sound. Makes it easier to narrow in on what you're trying to when you visually see the hit and that's where it's hitting.
Yep, definitely.
But
seeing where everything
those are some great mixing tips. Really, I can't get enough of his tutorials. Tutorial Tuesdays, huh?
Yep.
Putting that out every Tuesday. I'm going to start going every Tuesday to catch them.
Yeah, just subscribe and get the notifications, man. You'll be all set.
Yeah, well, my problem with YouTube and notifications is that when your notifications are always full, then your notifications, eventually you stop hearing notifications because it rings all the time.
But it will have it all in your feed, though.
That's what happens when you subscribe to like hundreds of channels. Yeah. The nice thing is that like for me, when I do finally get some watching something time, when I do go to my YouTube, it is chock full of great sound engineering YouTube videos these days. With all the ones you've been showing me and that I've been subscribing to, now my recommendation list is just audio engineers YouTube playlist.
Nice. It's good when the algorithm starts figuring out that's what you want to see.
Oh, interesting. Snave is also saying he goes at the 80-ish frequency range, because this one was 30,
Right.
and it's interesting that he was focusing on the 30, which is just below, like, you know, like he was saying, like what we hear in our conscious listening.
Actually,
But
he corrected himself on that, where he originally said that we don't hear below 40, but then in the text he said we don't hear below 20.
well, we
so
can.
actually we hear down as far as 20. So like the 30 is just above, but yeah, it's down in a very low range.
And it's about like how we process it, because, like, you know, we see way more colors than we actually perceive. Our eyes are way more versatile than our focus like lets us see. The important thing is our brain does actually process all that extra information. Your brain remembers everything that you're doing as you do it. Whether you remember it or you can recall it, that's a different story. But the processing system does actually hit the brain. And when you're hearing these sounds that are at the edges of our listening frequency, our brain is still picking it up, and sometimes that translates into like a song you're listening to and you like it. You don't know why you like it, you just do. If those subliminal frequencies are hitting the right spots, you might like a song just because that layer below what you hear on the surface is filled in.
Nice.
I can't always explain why I like a song. Sometimes, like, you know, I just like it. I like the fullness of it, or you know, the notes it's hitting. Sometimes it's the melody, sometimes it's the mix, and those subliminal sounds that are added to that mix.
Or the instrument choices and how they work together. Yeah.
Yeah, the creativity of the arrangement. I mean, all of those things will factor into how I perceive it when I'm listening to it. We're a complicated beast when it comes to, like, you know, listening. It's not just hearing something that you like what they said
Mhm.
or how they played it.
Have you seen that product that's out on the market now? It's probably been out for a while, and I just didn't realize it. But I seen a commercial for it the other day. It's like a vest that you can put on, and it hooks in with your headphones. And so when you're listening to music, you can actually feel it too. It like straps on your chest,
Feel it?
or you can put it on your
So it's
waist.
kind of
Yeah,
like
I've heard
a
of
rumble chair
something like
kind of.
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it goes
Yeah,
on the
the
VR
gamers
stuff.
gamers are the ones who have instigated this
Yes,
stuff. Yeah.
it looked pretty cool. I was like, ooh, I want one of
Cuz
those.
think of how useful that is if you want to simulate, like, you're playing a VR game and you want to simulate like getting hit in the chest, like, oh my god, I got shot. If you've got this vest on and it has like a little subwoofer in your chest with
Right.
sound, you can feel like you got shot.
Yep.
Yes.
It's slick how they are utilizing, like, you know, sound technology with some of this immersive experience that they're building
They could easily
with
take that too far,
people
but
who are
yeah,
willing to
definitely a cool idea.
wear shit to play. Yeah. I would like it simply for the fact of I'd like to be able to feel sound throughout my body. I mean, I kind of do. Like, nowadays I listen so hard to stuff that sometimes I can feel music in my toes, you know, especially like the metal stuff, like the things that get my feet going. And if I'm tapping my feet as I'm doing the bass snare, and next thing I know, I'm like playing the guitar solo on my toes. Like, my body feels music these days. The more
Right.
you focus in on it.
And I definitely feel bass
I
like
wish I could
vibrating
play
through me
with
when I'm
my
playing it.
toes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, bass is a
Yeah, I think
great
it's
use if you're gonna wear.
there's bone conduction going on too when you're listening to music. The sound's traveling through your body, so that's
Oh
why
yeah.
when you listen to your voice on something you recorded, it sounds different because
Yep.
your skull is kind of like a speaker, you know. It's weird.
Yeah, and you're seeing them utilize bone conduction is a technique that they've been really utilizing a lot more since the mobile market came out, and they're trying to come up with more convenient headsets that pick up what you're saying without a mic sticking out of you. Have you ever listened through those bone conduction headphones and used their mic technology? I've got one of them here. I bought a bunch of different Bluetooths back in February just to experiment with things, and the bone conduction is interesting, but at the same time, it's if you're like talking like audio recording, especially for music and things like that, it's it wouldn't fit good for that scenario where you're trying to get a good recording of something, but it is a great idea for like pushing sound through your body like that. And if you could push it across your whole body, I guarantee you there's somebody out there who's figuring it out.
Hell yeah.
Someday people could be listening to something with their fingers, put their hand on something and listen to music.
Yeah.
They used that in one of the movies. I think it was Baby Driver. One of the guys was he was deaf, but he was able to put his hand on the speaker and feel the music and feel the beat of the music.
Was that Beethoven you were telling me about, Tony?
Beethoven, Beethoven did that for like the last couple of symphonies. He literally was like his head was on the piano as he was writing everything because he had to feel out his chords
on the piano so he could hear it better. That's fucking crazy.
Think about it, like your teeth. Imagine you're like jawing like the top of a baby grand. You will feel it in a way that you don't feel it through your ears.
Right.
I would say try that simply for the experience. You don't have to go deaf and do it. Try it just to see what it feels like. I bet you it'll change your approach, like what you're writing at that moment.
I had one of those toothbrushes that had a built-in speaker. That was kind of cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that
was kind of cool.
Man, that's what my mom should have got me.
Yeah, they work pretty good.
Metal toothbrush or something. I'd be like breaking the law, breaking my jaw.
Right. That's funny. Man, I've been sitting at a freaking train for hours. It seems like. So I went around to the other side of town, and now there's another train. I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm living on the wrong side.
Oh, what are you waiting for it to cross? You're waiting for it to cross?
Yeah, I had a couple of strikeouts.
We've got one right at the end of my road.
Oh, I hate it. I don't know if they're loading up or what, but it's just stopped. I'm like, come on, guys.
I got one lined up for you.
And trains are not in a hurry.
How about the Mummies?
What you got, Glenn?
I got the Mummies. Kind of lingers.
Oh, have you checked these guys out, Joe?
Not yet.
These guys are fantastic, man. It's like punk rock metal meets big brass 50s, 60s sound, and the humor is completely up your alley. All that like comedy rock we're talking about, these guys mastered it.
Definitely.
Naughty and risque and all that kind of stuff.
Right, double entendre.
If it's all right with you, we're gonna do a song from the heart, baby.
It's a soul song.
A little relationship song.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes you get lucky, baby, and the love hangs around a while. You know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
This song's about that. It's called Kinda Lingers. It just won't dissipate. So overloaded my senses. Tears in my eyes, I'm defenseless. She's like an onion with layers and essence I just can't escape. Cuddlingers up in the morning. Cuddlingers all through the night. Cuddlingers anytime she wants me. It's alright. It's alright. It's Cuddlingers, oh, in the morning. Cuddlingers, all through the night. Cuddlingers, anytime she wants me. It's alright. It's alright. Cuddlingers, oh, in the morning. Cuddlingers, all through the night. Cuddlingers, anytime she wants me. It's alright. It's alright. It's Cuddlingers.
Yeah.
Yep, they got a couple of really awesome songs that are in that same style.
That was dope.
What? What did he say? She's like an onion in the morning.
Yeah,
With layers.
It's such ballsy. Like they go there.
with class though. They did it.
Yeah,
They did it with stuff.
the sound is so classy that you can't like ignore the humor because it's such good sound. That's a great like 70s funk, sound
Yeah.
that you can't go wrong with.
So good.
Using
Yeah,
using humorous situations,
right.
and if you say kind of lingers, if you say it fast, and when you hear it like that, to wordplay, strategic wordplay like that.
Yeah.
I got the other one. I got the other one lined up for you with some more wordplay that you like. The other one was called Pants. Let me see if I can bring that one up here.
Do a little song, all right, about your britches.
Plus, the keyboardist uses the same phantom that I use.
Nice.
Big fan of keyboardists who recognize good sound.
Monday, Tuesday, hump day is halfway. Sticking in the pig, popping in the bank. Saturday's coming quicker than a thing. 48 to rendezvous. I'm gonna blow a wad on you. Covered in my pants, my shirt, my best suit, baby. Gonna pick your flower, gonna be there in an hour. My pants, shine shoes, and my necktie, honey. I'm so excited, I hope that I don't come soon. I can't move on, attention is long gone. Suits are players, wallets in shape. The only thing left is a little man's cape. 24 to rendezvous. I can't wait. I'm gonna blow a wad on you. Oh, oh,
Yeah, those guys kick ass for sure. That's Here Come the Mummies, the name of the
That
band.
was good, man. I enjoyed that.
Oh my god, that gets me crying. I'm crying here. It's so
That had that old classic Blues Brothers sound to it too. I like that with the horns.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. Totally hear that. Yep.
Mad
That's what I'm
respect
talking
for those
about. That
guys.
that mix of like good like rock sound with that.
Oh, yeah.
They have on some of the videos he's shown me, they have like the perfect brass setup. Well, it's not brass, winds, quartet. They got their
Yeah.
saxes taken care of, 4 saxes, 2 trumpets. There's a guy who actually like switches, and half the time he's playing pads and the other half he's got like his sax around him. That is a great full band. It must be so fun to play with those guys.
Hell yeah. I can
And
only
that
imagine.
singer, you know, I can't believe of all the tracks I've heard so far, that singer really has a great power voice for that sound.
Yeah, when they hit those really high notes, that's actually the guy in the
he's
top
as
hat.
good as those brass sections. Oh, that's the one with the hat?
The guy at the top hat sits in for those super high notes, those couple of sustained high notes. Like you'll see them, he'll jump on the mic for just those couple of notes, and then it's back to the main guy. The guitar player's doing
Yeah,
most
they
of the
got a
singing.
great grasp of they have a great grasp of the funk sound, and you know how to structure it. One of the ones that you showed me, like they led off the solos, each part of their band, you know, did their solo, handed it to the next part, and they did their solo. They have a good grasp on that whole sound construction for that funk sound.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was going to be, if it wasn't the Freak Flag, which was the animated one, then it probably would have been Here Comes the Wiener Man. No, Attack of the Wiener Man.
Yeah, Joe, I'm telling you, like all of this shit, you definitely want to go through their catalog. It'll give you inspiration. When Glenn first played them for me, I was just like, wow, this got my brain racing on ideas.
That is fantastic.
I want to make some funny music.
The Mummies.
Here's the Attack of the Wiener Man real quick, because this is the other one that's just full of double entendre, and I think this is the one he was talking about for the horn section.
A legendary superhero.
Yeah, the solo. Yeah, listen
it
to
is,
the
yeah.
solo on.
It's about a hot dog vendor.
You got all the saxes in this one.
Makes a
It's
couple.
it's the best kind of solo handing that you can do.
He's coming for you. He's gonna get you. Attack of the Wiener Man. He's coming for you. He's gonna get you. Attack of the Wiener Man. Late at night when the bars are closing, the alcohol takes its toll, and the drinkers need their favorite vendor. Takes a treat of sausage blender. Oh, the little man behind the bar. The police can't catch him cause he's way too smart. The smell of mustard in a big umbrella. Hot dog man's got the perfect cover. He's coming for you. He's gonna get you. Attack of the Wiener Man. He's coming for you. He's gonna get you. Attack of the Wiener Man.
I love this retro synth solo.
He waits out patient out in the street. All the honeys want to sample the meat. He can't help but relish the fact the footlong keeps you coming back. I want you feeling safe and cool. That's when the Wiener Man makes his move. You can't scream when your mouth is full. He's coming for you. He's gonna get you. Attack of the Wiener Man. He's coming for you. He's gonna get you. Attack of the Wiener
Those hits.
He's coming for you. He's gonna get you. Attack of the wiener man. He's coming for you. He's gonna get you. Attack of the wiener man. He's coming for you. He's gonna get you. Attack of the wiener man. Attack of the wiener man. Attack of the wiener
Yeah. Here come
I
the
really,
mums.
I really love their punchy hooks. Like their hooks are the like punchy moments where you get those hits. You don't have to have words during that. Just that little bump, 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 bump works so great.
Carries the whole thing. Yep.
What is that staccato?
Well,
When they just
it transitions. It transitions them.
Percussive
Yeah.
staccato. Yep.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought that word was. Okay. Yeah, they're on the game with the fucking staccato.
And you see how they transition from the alto sax to the
Yeah.
tenor during that solo. The shift from the first sax guy to the second one was such a nice, clean shift in sound. It was written to transition it nice. A solo sounds so much better actually when it's shared. A solo that has a couple of different sounds going on in it is way better than just like one guitar sitting there. I mean, granted, a good guitarist, Eddie, can hold his own solo all by himself, but if you had Eddie leading to Michael, leading to Alex, these are the solos that
Mm-hmm.
make the classic solos of the 70s and in this funk sound.
Right.
And a lot of that funk sound, I would like to hear that more incorporated into metal. So
Yeah.
Jason's already been like shown them and started to play with some funky metal. Joe, I'm sure that you got some funk in you too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Funk metal sounds like a good challenge.
Yeah,
That
funk
does
metal's the kind of metal I want to experiment more with.
Yeah.
I spent decades on symphonic metal. Now I want to get the funk out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Definitely a good plan.
And the Slither crew should have some funk in their sound.
For sure. You're right. Absolutely.
How many pieces you got in that band so far? Do you have enough room for a horn section?
Of course.
Oh, I'll make a horn section.
We have
I'll get some
so far. But
I don't know how I'm gonna.
You know.
I don't know how I'm gonna animate somebody playing a butt kazoo, but it's worthy of the challenge. With some of these videos Angie's been showing me lately, I can almost envision what somebody playing a butt kazoo is gonna look like.
Yeah, I saw that. What was that? Wednesday night. I was peeping on the show, man, and some of them visuals, I was like, holy cow.
Oh, she's found some inspiring 3D animations. They've got me thinking of like, I mean, we can do all that. You know, the key with 3D animation is first like setting up models and cameras, and then having second like a computer with a good 3D card like the one Glenn has to just render it out afterwards. But
Right.
you have a good eye for, the scene and what you want to see. Like, the video that you made with the fire and the chair and you contemplating in it, like all of that took vision, and you saw how you wanted to blend the different scenes to make that vision. With 3D, the beauty of it is you have unlimited cameras, you have everything's virtual. So you want a camera here? Make a camera there. You want a camera here? Make a camera there. You want this camera to move? Then tell that camera to move. Once you've got all that down, then it's just back to creativity. Slap your stuff up on the stage, visualize it the way that you do, and the camera work takes care of itself at that point.
Yeah, that's cool how you can do the camera work after you shoot your scene.
Yeah.
That's pretty tight. I like that a lot.
It's like post producing with audio these days. Like, it's so cool that I can put all my effects on these tracks afterwards. In the old days with the analog, trying to get that like killer effect, you had to record it wet to like hear that distorted guitar, because you needed to get it from the amp.
Right.
Now you have the luxury of not only can you do it afterwards, but you can change it. Oh, you know what? I don't want that distortion box. I want this one.
Yeah.
And I don't have to play the track again.
Yeah. Quite different world we live in from what, 10, 15 years ago.
That's for sure.
It lends itself to your creative vision. These options now in this world lend themselves. There's nothing stopping you from achieving your vision these days.
True this. Yeah. Oh yeah. I still like that old school way of doing stuff too, though. I just brought home an airbrush the other day, an airbrush set. Oh,
Nice.
That was fun. Played with that. I made some band shirts
For painting?
Yeah, for painting. Yes.
You didn't already have an airbrush? I'm
did
amazed
not.
with all the creative shit that you have. I would imagine an airbrush you would have got a long time ago.
Yeah, I had one. It got trampled in, life.
Oh, so you did? Yeah, and they do get beat on.
They do.
As long as you didn't like burn it in a bonfire like a recliner or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oops, I forgot my airbrush in the in the pile.
Right.
Well, whenever you're ready, if you are interested in one of those drawing tablets, I've dealt with them over the last 30 years with my Photoshop work, and if you ever do want to go shop for a good drawing tablet, that will be a virtual airbrush, it'll be a virtual fine tooth pen, it'll be any kind of thing you want it to. And I know once you start drawing on the screen in a way that these new tablets let you, you're gonna be like, this is my new toy.
That's
and they don't have to be expensive.
Right. Okay, they can get up there. I seen that. What was it?
Well,
the Wacom? Is that what it's called?
For what you pay, it's worth more than what you get. As if you think about an airbrush and the cost of like material, what you spend in art material, you will have paid for it in the first 8 months, assuming that like you're like, oh my god, I can draw again, and you do a bunch of shit. You will pay for it in about 8 months of what you would have spent on art material. After that, it will keep working for you as much as you want, and there's where the investment really kicks in.
Yeah. Could it be synced up with the 3D world?
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm hoping you'll get it for. When you get it, after you get it set up to do the flat drawing, with 3D, those pens are really cool because they're intuitive for working with models and things. So if I give you Slither on a bike and you want to rotate him around and you want to bend his arm and make him go into a hell yeah chant, The pen's going to make it a lot easier for you to grab his arm, and it's a lot better than using a mouse. I use a trackball myself because mice in the 3D world are really clunky, but those pens are great with them.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, you'll feel you'll feel like you're literally playing with Barbie dolls or GI Joes, and you're using a stylus to like say, okay, move your arm, open your hand, now wave. and with the stylus, you'll just kind of nudge it with the pen.
That's cool. Would you recommend the Wacom, or there look like some knockoffs of it, like some, I don't know, a couple of other brands that we're talking about. I was looking on Amazon.
In this particular case, the reason why I'd go with the Wacom is because of their long-term commitment to this. They are the ones who started the whole graphic tablet movement back in the 90s. There are some good competitors, and actually, I would say don't take my recommendation. Take my recommendation with a combination of others who use it for different reasons. Because for me, I haven't used it since I used it in my Photoshop work. And pens and tablets are useful in Photoshop, especially if you're mixing drawing with like image editing. In your case, you're going to want to get some advice on these from those who are doing the drawings and things, the same kind of work you're going to do. And with their advice and, some of like mine, you'll get a good gauge on like whether it's worth going with a reputable name. Like to go with Wacom is like to go with Sony versus going with an, Audio Technica or one of those no-name companies. Remember back in the 80s where like you bought Sony if you were buying stereo equipment because you knew what you were getting. You bought a Fisher. Well, actually Fisher's not a good example because I had one and they were the kind of name brand back then. But you bought like the other one because it was $500 cheaper.
Right, Realtek or something.
But with these tablets, you're not going to see a big price difference between. Wacoms are very competitive because they are the leaders in that industry. They do have competitive options, and I would rather get a refurb or like a second generation tablet because they've been doing good graphic tablets. You can draw on the tablet. It's a screen. You won't be drawing on your computer. You'll be drawing on a screen. They have some good ones there that are now second generation, third generation that are, a few years older, but they are in the like $400, $500 range when they used to be in the $3,000 range. And they're still worth $3,000.
Right.
This is where you can get like, a lot of bang for a little buck, and it'll be a professional bang because this is what the pros use. The guys who draw comics and make, animations.
Yes.
This is what they use.
Yes, I've seen some samples of things they do. It also looks like they can do animated series with it too, like cartoons.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that looks like a winner to me. Was it?
Yeah, you saw those
samples
that Ann showed. Those sample web series that Ann showed you. The like Blue's Clues spin-off, like knockoff.
Right.
That's all done with these kinds of tools, and a little bit of video magic to make the animations. Not hard stuff though on the video side.
Yes. Yeah, that's a hell of a tool to obtain. Yeah, I'm gonna.
It's a worthy investment in the utility belt because I do notice your drawing skills.
Right on.
And the fact that you have a cast of characters already too, and to just drop into an animation thing also, so you're not starting from scratch trying to figure out what you're going to use for avatars or whatever. You've already got.
You don't have to invent your content; it's waiting for you to draw it at this point.
Okay.
That's the beauty of your situation.
Oh yeah.
Your shit's already defined.
Yeah, we'll have to search it out and see if we can find a good deal somewhere. Would you say Newegg would be the best place to start
Uh,
looking?
I would definitely check there first for
Okay.
that kind of gear.
Yep.
Sometimes you can find the ones that I'm talking about, the refurbs, the ones that are like never really got sold. They sat on a shelf in the back of a Best Buy. That's what your typical refurbs are.
Yeah.
And in this kind of situation, it's the difference between the $1,500 new one and the $500 one that comes from a reputable place. Like with Newegg, you'll be able to just pay an extra $50, $60 and say, give me a extended 2, 3 year. On something like that, I would certainly do that, because for the next 3 years, this thing's going to work. And if it doesn't work, they're going to take it back and either give me the same thing or something better.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And for like the next 3 years, for this cost, you have a
Right.
working device.
Right. And you don't have to clean up the paint afterwards. You just turn it off.
No, you don't have to clean up the paint. You don't have to buy new pencils,
Yeah. So you save and
clean a paint nozzle,
Right.
all the shit that comes with the physical art world. It,
Yep.
it's why even the most stingiest of old school artists over the last decade have really started to assimilate to it more, because when you weigh those costs as they keep going up, the pencils aren't getting cheaper. When I was a kid, I used to get one of those killer boxes of colored pencils for like 20, $25 at the art store. That shit's like $100 to $200 now for the same set.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, you got me interested. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I think you told me about that about a month ago, and it's been on my mind. I was looking on Amazon, but then
Well,
I
I
got
saw your light.
sideswiped.
I saw your eyes fire up when
Oh
the
yeah.
idea kicked you in the head. I saw your eyes. You said, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
can I get a pen to do this?" When you started drawing,
Yeah.
when Zoom put in the annotations and shit, you said,
Right.
"Oh, I can draw on the screen."
I do.
When you started thinking that, and you asked about like the pen, I mean, I have dealt with them going back to the '90s, the first
Yeah.
generation of Wakems,
Okay.
when they sucked.
Okay.
128 levels of pressure. Now they
Yeah.
have thousands of level of
I
pressure.
saw that.
That pen
Mhm.
now can be anything. My
Yeah.
first pen had 128 levels of pressure. It was practically just like a marker,
Yeah. Yeah.
and not even a
Okay.
good marker,
Yeah.
a felt tip.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you got me interested. Sounds like the next endeavor. Get to show on the road.
That'll be an investment that returns on itself,
Okay. I'm excited.
both in creativity and any cost that it does. They'll equalize themselves. Your creativity will definitely go nuts,
I'm down.
especially with this 3D
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah.
It looks like they figured out whatever was going on with the track uploading and downloading.
Oh, did they finally fix it?
It looks
Oh
like
yeah,
it did.
you're right.
All the ones that
My
are processing.
my track finally processed. Yay!
Oh, really?
Thank you, BandLab. Oh yeah,
my God.
BandLab's been since like 2 o'clock this afternoon. Anybody that was trying to upload a track or in the middle of processing a track, it just looped and looped and looped. I think they either hit their space capacity or one of the servers in between when it goes from your project to storage. One of the servers might have been pukey.
Could have been that hurricane.
And well, they're in Singapore. Chances are their servers are too. So,
Okay.
although their servers are probably spread out. Usually, like this kind of thing, you'll see like some BandLab members can do something and some can't. There was definitely a lot today who couldn't. It's maybe one of the first few times where I actually saw a collected group of people say, "This isn't working." for something that big.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I think I tried to
And
post 4
sometimes
of them today. So
it's platform specific. There's been times where we had stuff that worked on the web side and not on the Android side, or vice versa. There was one night Ange was only getting viewers who were on Androids.
right, because on the PC
Everything
side it was
else
saying you ran
was
into a page not found.
fucked up.
Okay.
Yeah,
My
a server not working.
Wow.
But you know, they've been doing a lot of good upgrades. So for all this crap, we might give them you're down for this time. They have done some really cool shit, both on the website. They're changing a bunch of stuff over there, and on the Cakewalk side, they are going nuts, man. Since they got the integration into Cakewalk, every update, and they're doing them like weekly at this point. Like they don't usually push out this many Cakewalk updates, but they're really integrating the online editor integration.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did notice.
It's getting
when I
smooth.
was
Like
yeah when I was
grabbing, changing, pushing back is
yeah
getting really smooth.
yeah it's working really good with Cakewalk, man. As far as publishing straight from your DAW, that's insane.
Yeah.
Love that.
The last thing that they need to do to truly make that seamless is to make a VST plugin that can load over in Cakewalk, that will load all whatever you do on their online editor. When you load an effect over there, make
Yeah.
a VST plugin so I can load my BandLab settings, and I can load those BandLab presets over in Cakewalk, or I can load their synthesizer, because some people do some cool shit with MIDI on their online editor, but their MIDI is not very versatile coming up. Well, it's getting there. Now with the Cakewalk shit, the MIDI is actually coming down. I love it. But some people do MIDI effects in the online editor, and in the online editor, you can add reverb and other things, guitar effects, to the direct MIDI. In Cakewalk, you can't. What you can do for MIDI effects when you're in Cakewalk, a MIDI track is not something you apply like reverbs and those effects. A MIDI track is a performance data. So you don't do effects to a MIDI track. You bounce the MIDI track to audio, and then you put reverb to the bounced audio of the MIDI. And the way that the BandLab editor works with the MIDI, it's kind of like that. So when you download the track from the online editor, you're not getting a MIDI file if you want it to sound like it does with the reverb or whatever you did up there. You have to get it as a WAV file. The BandLab editor has to render it in order for you to be able to hear it in Cakewalk. If they make a VST plugin and they let you load their effects into that, then you can literally bring whatever's on the online editor as MIDI and still duplicate it over in another DAW.
Yeah.
As a first step, they're giving you the export,
Not
with
just Cakewalk.
the MIDI file and the rendered file, which is good. So you're getting both the MIDI data and you're getting whatever they rendered it out as on the BandLab side.
Yeah, you are getting useful stuff. I mean, at this point, when you download a project, you have the option of getting both the dry track and the wet track. So if Glenn lays down a bass track and he uses one of their presets to sweeten up his bass and make it sound a little punchier, I can get both the dry bass track and the wet bass track, and they'll come at the same time. The wet one will say stem and the dry one won't. And I get both, and I can decide, do I want to use the wet track or the dry track? So it's nice that you're getting both the options.
Or a mix of both. Pan one this way, pan one that way.
Yeah.
Give one a little more power.
I end up using both in a lot of cases. The dry track serves a purpose because I want to use glue. My bus mixing means that I want to run this track through one of those buses because those buses are gluing the tracks together. So I want that dry track usually is the best candidate. I'm going to run that into my reverb and my compressors or tube amps. And that dry track is going to be part of the glue, and the wet track you can strategically level so it's either dominant and the sound sounds like the wet track with just a little padding, or it's not dominant and you push it in the back and the wet track becomes a padding to what you set.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely like the option of using both.
Yeah,
That's
for
it.
vocal mixing and shit like that. Sometimes I use that vocal track to be the lead, and sometimes I use that vocal track to be the padding. And usually the dry tracks are the ones that I do the padding, the effects. If somebody lays down a good vocal track with one of the BandLab presets, I try to use it and keep it as the lead, assuming that they picked a preset that is copacetic with the mix that I'm trying to mix it into.
And
Because
the
if
style
somebody
of music,
does
yeah.
use like an obnoxious reverb or an obnoxious effect, and I don't want that effect, I just want the voice, and I want to mix it with other shit and put it into a room, then I will use the dry track in those situations.
Yeah, I got you.
Definitely like the
And
integrations.
I don't think a lot of people experiment enough with the at least with the reverb preset that they end up using on BandLab. I don't think a lot of the people that I hear who are using it actually go in and tweak their individual reverb to get it to be the reverb they want. I think they pick that popular reverb preset and they just use it because I hear it so often. It has the same decay, it has the same the reverb doesn't change, and it's like 5 different singers who are all on that same reverb, and it doesn't match the reverb of the music's room.
Right.
That's where doing a room to kind of glue everything together. You put all the instruments in the same room to get that kind of glue going on.
Yeah. Well, that's what the reverb bus is for. The whole purpose of my reverb bus, the very first bus I ever make in a project, and it's always there, is to be the room. Whether it's a small room, whether it's a hall, whether it's a stadium. You define your room, you put it in a bus, and every one of those tracks is going to hit that bus. It's just a matter of how much they're going to hit it. Some tracks, you're going to push them all the way to that reverb bus. Others, you're going to pull back to like the drum tracks. I tend to pull back to like 75% of the room bus because you don't want to throw a fucking hard drum track into your room reverb unless you want that reverberation. If I was doing timpanis or something, sometimes I will like do it at 100%, but usually my drums are like 60, 70% to that bus of signal.
Yeah.
When it comes to bus mixing, you will start to like know your instruments and how much certain instruments push to that overall bus to use that effect. And with reverbs, you got to be gentle with certain instruments. Not all instruments lend themselves to big ass rooms.
Right.
Screeching guitars, especially.
Yeah, reverb can take away your presence, make you sound kind of far away. It's like, where did it
Well,
go?
if reverbs don't match, if you've got one thing that has a certain reverb sound and you've got something else, this is what you get on BandLab a lot of times, because if you have like somebody who lays down their guitar tracks and there's a reverb going on with that guitar sound, small room, little acoustic guitar, and then a singer goes and lays a track down on it, picks a preset from BandLab, big room, sounds like they're in a hall,
Right.
your ear
Have that quality.
subconsciously hears the imbalance. You hear two different instruments. You know this instrument's in this room. I recognize it because I'm paying attention to it. But even somebody who's not thinking about it, when they hear an imbalance like that, that's something wrong with the sound that affects how you feel about what you're listening to. It doesn't sound right because this doesn't equal that.
Right.
Getting all that to balance is what mixing's all about. Getting everything to glue together. Gluing sound is the strategy nowadays. You'll hear every sound engineer out there constantly talking about glue. Glue is like the consolidated effects, the blue cap plugin that you run after the mix just to get rid of runaway frequencies and tones. Little things like that. Mixing with glue is, I guess you would say, Glenn, with all the dark matter talk, we've been talking about, and the things that fill the space in between things. In sound mixing, the glue is all the things that bring all that sound together in a consolidated galaxy.
Yeah, and actually the mixing in mono secret that we talked about the other day was one of those that kind of like
Yeah.
brought some of that into sharp focus, where
That was useful.
Yeah, bringing everything to get all the levels in line, and then when you go to space everything out to the stereo field, all of a sudden everything is playing nice because it was playing nice in mono to start with.
Yeah. That's a great one, Joe, that you should catch sometime. The technique that this guy uses to when you're trying to isolate a certain sound, and when you're mixing in stereo on a track, sometimes it's hard to actually isolate your frequencies. By switching to mono, it can help you to really narrow in on
Oh, really?
the exact sound that you're trying, when you're trying to hear that one sound inside of like a mix of sound, like, especially in metal songs and things where it's like, I need to put my ear focus on, like, that rhythm guitar that's playing in the background, and you have to kind of mentally isolate all the other stuff, but at the same time you want to hear it with it.
Yeah.
Switching to a mono track in those situations can really help you to isolate something, do your mixing and get it to like what you're trying to do, and then just put it back to the stereo afterwards.
Okay. I got you. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because you're using the stereo field kind of to place the
Well,
instruments in their place in the room, but you're getting the mono is getting it so that nothing
with
is
certain
jumping too far above
instruments,
others.
Yeah. Good.
yeah, and it really works better with certain instruments. It's not something that like across all the instruments it's going to work evenly, but with those instruments that can be mono, when you think about it, the guitars, the basses, the mics, things that actually are mono signals starting out. It only becomes a stereo signal when you plug it into a stereo guitar effects processor, but it comes out mono.
Right. Yeah, I got you.
And that can help when you're in those like surgery moments of sound mixing where you're like going deep into a specific sound and a specific instrument.
One thing we're gonna have to do a whole episode on sometime is basically when you have like, let's say 7 elements in the song, whatever they are, 7 different instruments and vocals, and everything itself, like if you solo everything is well behaved in terms of volume, but then when you have everything together, the whole track is getting way too loud, and it's sometimes it's because things are reinforcing each other, sometimes it's because things are in the wrong places in the stereo field, but it's something that's worth looking into all the different reasons why that stuff happens.
It's the collected volume of
Yeah.
all the tracks together. When you're looking at these digital consoles these days, this is what I love about like being able to do it across all these screens. When you are playing your tracks, and I have like 50 or 60 of them, and they're all equaling like +3 +4 on my final. I'm looking at my final, I'm looking where it's hitting its top, and I'm trying to figure out like which tracks are the ones that are pushing that final mix up there. Now, like cakewalks especially, you can see that shit on the fly. Like every track has information constant as you're playing and you're watching all those lights. It's keeping track of all the hits and levels. And if you look at the end, you don't even have to have watched the whole time. If you look at the end after the song's done, you will see which ones of those tracks are leading to that +4 on the final mix peak moment.
Yep.
I can isolate my noise now without actually hearing it anymore, just by seeing the results.
When the results vary from expected. Yeah.
And it's almost always the same instruments though. Like no shocker that like your drum tracks, your guitar tracks, that the heavy guitars, or if they're like strummy, like punchy steel strings and things like that. These are the and basses for sure. Bass probably numero uno on the like why levels go up. Bass and drums. Those are always the two tracks that if I want this final to hit less than +5 decibels, because certain genres, you don't want to go past +5 decibels. If you are, you're coming out hot. Most popular music, 4 to 5 on the plus decibels is the sweet spot.
And just remember, if you push your
And
fader up to 100%, that's too loud.
Metal, actually, you want to be hitting 3-ish. Like you want to give it like a little headway, so that way, like those higher and harder sounds that you typically have there aren't right at the ceiling, because otherwise, metal will push right past the sweet spot.
I didn't realize you could go past 0.
Well, you can go anywhere, but once you start getting past like +7, +9 on digital outputs, like, you know, in your DAW, when you're looking at your master, like you just played your whole track and you're looking at the stereo outs. If your output is going up that high, +5 is in the comfort range. From a mixer standpoint, it's like the yellow just under red. You know, when you're looking at a mixer and you're looking for that spot you want your sound to be in the digital world, though, once you start to go past like +5, you're going into red output territory. If your mix is hitting that shit, if you're making a hip hop track and you're slamming that bass in there because you just want to be obnoxious, go look at the outputs on those and they're hitting like +8. That's the stuff that breaks speakers and most people's ears eventually.
It's like red light in the car. Yeah.
Yeah. And your goal is not to make people turn down. Your goal is to make people turn up. When people turn up a volume, they say they want to hear it louder. They want to hear more. When people turn down volume, the reaction is that, ooh, ah! Your goal is not to get people to turn shit down. Your goal is to get people to turn shit up. That's why you have to hit your sweet spot on your output, and hopefully, if it's really good, people are listening at 50 to 75% on their device, they can turn it up.
Yeah.
The other thing we talked about with doubling tracks is if you do have left and right and you're panning, like if you make a copy of a track and you pan it left and right, you definitely want to pan it to different numbers left and right. You don't want to go even left and right, because then you
If
can
you
get
do go
nullifying
even,
effects.
yeah, the only time even will work there is if you go to the extremes. You know, you will see a lot of guitarists, and it does produce the effect that they typically want. Like Jason does this with some of his, like, you want to get that Iron Maiden sound, you know, or that like dual guitar sound. And if you do take the same track, put them extremely on both sides, modulate one of them so it's not exactly like the other one, needs
That's the key, yeah.
modulation. Then you can get a spatial effect, and because it's at the extremes, it really does feel like it's coming exactly from both sides, but it is different. But typically, if you have the same instrument and you do pan them to both sides and you do 15 to the left, 15 to the right, That's not good, because that same instrument will do weird frequency shifts and your ears will pick up on it.
But if you put a guitar at 15 left and a voice at 15 right, like those might offset each other nicely because it's not the same signal, so they're not going to directly offset or cancel, I should say.
And the goal is with a mix is to actually give things some spatial separation. So what makes things sound good to people when they're listening is they can hear a clarinet over here and they can hear a flute over here. And when you listen to orchestrations, the reason why all of those musicians are placed in the way that they are and spread out, the design of how the musicians are laid out is not just like willy-nilly. Like those musicians, look at brass bands, look at the Mummies and where they stand when they perform, and there's a reason why all that brass is next to each other there and producing that sound from that direction, because if you're standing in there getting the live experience, your sound's coming from everywhere.
Yep. And like
And
the
we
way they
want to
carried
hear
up the
that in our
solos, like you were
mixes.
saying too.
We want our mixes to sound like you're standing in front of my stage. If you do a good mix, you give that effect. That's why you want to mix in a room and you want to bring everything into that room. The listener is going to appreciate that you did that, because the listener enjoys being in a room. It's as much as important as being in an experience. Relating to the song. Subliminally, we like music that sounds like it makes sense. All that shit does sound like it's in the same room. That's a good sound.
Gets that cohesive sound, yeah.
Yes.
Do you?
That's the
Yeah, the
key.
ears don't lie to you.
That's the strategy that as a mixer you want to be shooting for.
Mhm.
And then after that, break all the fucking rules. Once you establish those basic rules, the reason why you're mixing is for those reasons. How you do it, what you decide to experiment with, that's the beauty nowadays. I can try hardware and effects that I could have never tried before because of the accessibility. Like now I can load a reverb in a plugin that 20 years ago I had to go spend $200 at LaSalle's Music.
Yeah.
And those Pultec tricks he was talking about earlier, there's multiple ways that you can use those. I've seen those multiple Pultec trick used for bringing vocals up higher in a mix, where they basically boost and cut the low end, and then later, like they do it in a chain, where in the beginning they boost part of it, and then later on they bring it down. And then with the high end, they bring it down first, and then bring it back up later. So they're basically trying to bring the low end up, do something to it, and then bring it back down. And they bring the high end down so it doesn't get affected, and then bring it back up. Pretty neat the way they were using the two different ones in
And
series to make that kind of stuff happen.
we're going to be hearing a lot more about those chains and side chaining, because this is becoming like, for modern sound engineering, these are the techniques. So you're going to be hearing that term more and more, because I know I have been. And I've been reluctant to I'm still trying to learn a bunch of other things, so I haven't tried to jump on other techniques too quick, but I know I can't avoid that one for much longer, especially with all the stuff you've been showing me, Glenn. And with that, it looks like Ange is going to be going in pumpkin mode, 12:45, so we can wind things down. And that was some awesome shit, man. I really love his mixing techniques. That is, I think, my favorite mixing YouTube channel. And that In the Mix guy that you showed me, both of those I've been finding great stuff.
Yeah, the parallel modes one from the other guy was definitely key.
Yeah.
He does gear
Joe,
review
we got to get
too.
that keyboard. Joe,
I know.
we got to get that keyboard hooked up at one point.
Yes.
I
let's
want
do
you
it.
using that.
I know. I'm probably gonna mess with it tonight. I had a job tonight, but it fell through. They didn't have power. It was because of the hurricane. So back at the house, I'm gonna.
It is running through, huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, well, it just passed us last night, but they didn't get the power fixed today. So I'll try it again later, you know.
And with Georgia, when they do get hit with those hurricanes, I was down there for like 3 years back in 2012, and I went through
Yeah.
2 hurricanes where I was North Atlanta, and yeah, power does not come back in 24 hours in that
No, it
area.
doesn't. No, it doesn't. Luckily, I got it at home though. That's where it
Yeah,
matters.
that's where I care more. Can't do your job, but I can do
Yeah.
mine.
No doubt. Yeah, so I will be utilizing that
But-
power and rocking and rolling tonight. For sure. I got to get some dinner.
If
but
you,
it was fun tuning
yeah,
in,
if you
man.
need any help with anything, just fire me a message. You got to get Skype on your machine. Get your Skype set up. Then you can send me messages that I can send back. If you text me on my phone, I can't respond because I don't have an SMS plan. So I get your messages, but I can't send them back.
I see. Okay.
But through Skype directly, messaging works great. You can fire me any questions you got.
Okay, cool. You gonna be up tonight?
Oh, I'm up for a while, so yeah, I'm around.
Okay.
I'm just checking with Ange. Hey, Angie.
Got to make sure she's okay.
Knock, knock, knock.
Who's
She's
there?
probably going through all her munchies. There she
Yeah,
is.
still doing it, still doing it. Yes, yes. And it's pumpkin time. Blah. All right. Thank you so much for this exciting episode. We're talking Shh IT with Glenn, Tony, and Slither. Okay, till next time, guys. Toodles.
Take it easy, everybody.
Bye, y'all.